Welcome to Design Mastery, the ultimate UI/UX bootcamp. My name is Aaron. If you've ever wanted to kickstart your career as a UI/UX designer, you are in the right place. This bootcamp is all you need to get started on your design journey. Throughout this course, we will cover almost every essential terms and concept used in UI/UX design. From design principles and wireframing to prototyping, user research, and usability testing. We will dive into almost every aspect of the field. Whether you're completely new to design or looking to sharpen your skills, this bootcamp is designed to equip you with the right tools and techniques to create beautiful and user-friendly digital products. By the end of this bootcamp, you will have a solid foundation in UI/UX design and be ready to take on real-world projects. This is your stepping stone to building a successful career as a UI/UX designer. This bootcamp is divided into 10 chapters, covering everything you need to build a solid foundation as a UI/UX designer. To make your learning process smoother, the course is broken down into 4 sections, each with 3 in-depth chapters. Finally, the last section of the bootcamp will be dedicated to a project where you will apply everything you've learned to build a complete app or website from start to finish. What is UI/UX? So before I answer that, UI stands for user interface, while UX stands for user experience. User interface is anything you see when you open a web page or a mobile app. For example, the register button that is here, the sign-in buttons, the images, the icons here, all this are user interface. This helps the user to interact with the system. The next big question is, what is user experience? So this is a little bit tricky to explain, but I'm going to use a simple illustration to do that. Let's take an instance. I walk into a shop and I tell the seller I want a chair, and they present me with this chair. And then I go again. I want a more comfortable chair. Right now, I'm putting the user in mind. So then I look at this, I say, okay, can you give me a wheelchair? And they present me with this third option. For this request, I have a particular user in mind. The first time I said chair, and it can be any type of chair, and the seller brought the chair. Let's look at these 3 chairs that we have. Now I have chair 1, chair 2, and chair 3. These chairs are supposed to be used by a handicap. So which do you think will give the user the maximum satisfaction while using? The whole feeling one gets from using a particular product, it's termed the user experience, which is UX. Let's start this bootcamp formally. User interface refers to the visual elements that users interact with in a product or service. This includes buttons, icons, layout, typography, and colors. Take typography for text, any text you see on the web page. Colors, white, black, blue. Let's take this other example again. Think of UI as the dashboard of a car. UI is the steering wheel. UI is also the buttons you see and the gauges you use to control the car. The design of this element, that's the steering wheel, buttons, and the gauge, must be intuitive and easy to use. The same thing with this other website here. If you look at this design visually, it is appealing to look, and then it's easy for me to select which category I want to browse. Then for user experience, is about the overall experience a user has when interacting with a product or service. So it is not just about how something looks, but how it feels to use. We already have an existing example on ground, which is the car. Let's explain the UX using the car. User experience is the feeling of driving the car. Is it smooth? Is the steering wheel smooth? Are the controls easy to reach? Is the car comfortable? A good UX makes the experience enjoyable and seamless. The same thing with an app. Let's say I try to order something online. The user experience will be the first time I select a product, add it to my cart, check out, and make payment. Is the experience easy? Is it seamless? Or was I stuck a little bit? That's the user experience. The overall feeling of using a particular product. Let's look at the relationship between these two terms. That's the UI and the UX. UI is the look and feel, whereas UX is the ease of use and satisfaction derived from the product. We're going back to the car analogy. UI is the design of the dashboard, while UX is how comfortable and enjoyable it is to drive the car. These two terms must work together for a great experience. If the UI is bad, then the user is going to have a terrible experience. So it's this web app here. You see, it's very easy for user to navigate, place an order, and the experience will be seamless. Why is it important for us to have a good UI? Good designs leads to happy users. When a product is easy to use and visually appealing, users are more likely to enjoy using it. If you have a poor design, this can lead to frustration and users abandoning that project, and you don't want that for any product. Let's take an example with the ATM machine. This one in particular. Imagine if the ATM machine is designed in such a way that when you press the button, it gets stuck and you have to put your two fingers just like this to pull the button out before you press that again. Do you know what will happen? It's going to lead to a frustrating user experience, which might make you avoid using that ATM in the future because you have to try to squeeze your fingers to pull that button out just like this. But all times we have the nice UI where you don't have to start pulling out buttons. Let's take Apple as a case study. Apple products are a prime example of the power of good designs. The clean, simple UI of iPhones combined with the smooth user experience has made them some of the most popular devices in the world. Let's take an example with the home screen of the iPhones. I actually love the home screen. The way they arrange the icons. We have an example here. You see, we have 4 columns. If Apple had added just one additional column, this is how it's going to look. It's going to look cluttered. This is going to lead to bad user experience. We have the return on investment of good design, that ROI. We are still looking at the importance of good designs. Companies that invest in good design see higher customer satisfaction, and if your customers are satisfied, it's going to increase the loyalty. They will be loyal to that particular product, and then you're going to sell better. An example here is Airbnb redesign increased users' engagement by 30% and also increased their revenue by $1 billion. The same with Google redesign of its search results page. It increased the click on ads by 18%. ROI here stands for return on investment. The next thing is the design principles. These design principles are going to guide us in creating an appealing UI. We have 5 design principles that we're going to cover. The first is the contrast. And contrast, that's basically colors and how we use them on our design. We have an example here. that states, using a bright color for a login button on a white background makes it stand out, guiding users to take action. We have this particular instance with this button here. This button stands out from all this inbuilt form, thereby guiding the user to click this button. A bad example of contrast is this other sign up button here. You can see the colors are not too great. The next principle is balance. This ensures that no part of the design feels too heavy or out of place. An example is a web page with images and text that are evenly distributed. This makes the web page feel more balanced and easier to read. If we're creating a design, you make sure that we don't have too many images or too much text on it. Everything should feel balanced. The next item here is alignment. The alignment creates a visual connection between elements. A simple example to explain this is text placed left aligned are easier to read than the text scattered around. This is a simple example with that in mind. Here the texts are left aligned and here the texts are aligned to the center. This first text will be easier to read. The next thing is repetition. The repetition reinforces visual consistency, making the design more cohesive. An example of that is using the same button style throughout your website or mobile app. This is going to help the user understand that these buttons perform similar actions. We have two examples here for the sign up and a sign in page. They are using the same button style for this design. The last item on our list is proximity. Proximity groups related items together, making the layout clearer. A simple example is placing labels close to their respective input field makes it easier for user to fill out the form. An example here, we have the full name, which happens to be the label, and then the form, which allows the user to type in their full name. The way we group this, full name is closer to this, then we have a big space here, then the next item. Let's look at a simplified example here. These 5 principles were used to design this particular page. The first here we said, use a bright blue sign up button on a white background. That is this button. Then place the form in the center of the page with equal spacing on all sides. We have the equal spacing on the left and then the right hand side. Then align all text to left. We have the full name, email, and password all aligned to left. Then for repetition, we say use the same font, button style across the page. We have the same font used throughout this page. For proximity, group name, email, and password field together with the sign up button just below them. We have the names, which are this here, the email and the password, all of them are grouped together. Then we have the sign up page. So following these principles led to the creation of this particular design. Let's look at the tags for this particular section, which I consider it a simple one. Your tags for this section is to choose a digital product. So it can be a website, it can be a mobile app, or a desktop software. So this should be something you use frequently. Then you can identify at least 3 design principles. Here it can be the contrast, balance, alignment, repetition, proximity that is applied to this particular product, and then reflect on how these principles affect your experience using the products. You can share your findings in the comment section. A product I picked is the Apple Store. I like the alignment, the contrast, and I also like how the page is balanced. You can pick any app of your choice and perform this analysis. The next thing we're going to cover for this bootcamp is to pick a design tool. For this, we're going to be using Figma. Before we can start working on Figma, I want us to upgrade all free accounts to professional accounts. We need to visit www.figma.com/education/apply. I'll be putting the link in the description below. Once you open it, and if you're logged in, you get this page. If you're not logged in, you'll be prompted to log in to your account. If you're a student, you're going to select student. But I'm an educator, so I'm going to select this option here. For the institution, here I'm going to select bootcamp or online. We need to fill in this other field here. So if you've attended any school, you can search for the name. I attended Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University. I'm going to select UIUX. So now we need to upload a copy of the syllabus we are working with. I will make that available in the description. I'm going to click here to upload the syllabus. I have that saved as UIUX, a PDF file. So I'm going to click on that here. We'll make sure you agree to everything here, and then we're good to go. You can click on submit. Once you've submitted this information, you get this. Now you have all our professional tools that make collaboration fun and easy. Create, upgrade, or join any existing team. Right now, we can then go to Figma. Once you open this Figma, we have this particular section here. But I want to download this to my desktop. To download Figma, you can actually open or search for Figma download here. So we can open this. You can now scroll down and choose which one you want to download. If you're working on Mac OS, you are going to use this. If you're working on Windows, you can download this as well. The next thing is to log in once you have downloaded and installed this on your computer. Once you try to log in, it's going to redirect you to your browser. So here I'm just going to continue with Google, since that's what I used during the registration, and I will select the email account. I'll wait. Once this has been authenticated, it's going to show you this, and then you can click on open this in desktop. I will click on open file. We can wait for this to load our files. This is how my Figma is going to look like. Here there is some few tips here to just guide you. All the project we are going to be working on will appear here, and then we can even visit or explore the community files. Here you can see free design resources. Let's just look at this. We have this. You are verified for Figma education, ready to upgrade. You can actually upgrade. So I'm going to close that. We don't need this for now. One thing you'll notice here is this particular theme. So depending on the name you use, so I use Codebox. So you see we have the Codebox theme. So this is where we can create and collaborate with different team members. This is the free plan, and we want to create a professional team where you can collaborate with other educators and students. To do that, click on the drop down here. You see I already have a theme here. I'm going to create a new theme, which I recommend you do. Let's click on this. This is going to be UI UX Bootcamp. I can click on create theme, and it's going to request that I add team members or collaborators. Since I don't have any, we're going to skip for now. Then it will bring you to this section here. Don't worry about this. We've already upgraded to the professional plan. To do that, you can just click on this upgrade to professional. Once you click on this, you'll see the price here. Don't worry about that. It's actually free. So it's going to ask a question here. Is this an educational theme? So once you click yes, it's going to automatically hide all of this. The next thing is to click on next review. Here you see all the prices have been checked out. We're just going to agree with the terms and condition. We can complete the upgrade. We just wait for this to upgrade. We've successfully created a theme called the UIUX Bootcamp. Yours can be the name of your theme. We can start by creating projects in this particular theme. Here you see I can just use one of this to add a new project, or we can just click on this and then create a new project. Let's say the name of our project, or for this bootcamp we have 10 chapters. I'm going to, let's say this is going to be session, say 1 to 3, 1 to 3. This is going to be like a folder inside this particular theme. So I'm going to click this. I'm not inviting anybody, and we can just set this to can access. I will create this. Once this has refreshed, I have session 1 to 3. All the files we need, we can start creating them inside this. Now let's say we want to create our first design file now. After following this process, I'm just going to click on the drop down here, and then we can create our first design file. We have our first design file, and you see it's inside session 1 to 3, and I'm going to name this UI Bootcamp. Once we have this, we are set. This is the Figma legacy UI. We want to use the Figma UI 3 for this design, which is currently not available to the general public. But we're going to be using the web browser, and I'll show you how you can enable the UI 3 on your browser. Let's head straight to our browser and type www.figma.com. If it prompts you to log in, it's fine. Once you open www.figma.com, so double click on our design here, and let's wait for this to open. So you notice we still have the same UI. To fix this, create a new tab on your browser and open Google. Type enable UI 3 beta for Figma. If you're on Chrome, you will get this. If you're on Firefox, you will also get this. I recommend using Chrome because I've tested this. So click on this and let's wait for this to open. And for this, you can now add to Chrome. Click on this, then we can add this extension here. Let's wait. Once you get this, you can go back to your Figma that's on the browser and refresh. This is going to give us a fresh new Figma UI 3 that looks like this. So this is the version we want to be using. Despite the notification that they are going to be, putting out some updates here, we're still going to learn using the new UI 3. The first thing here is to look at our files and assets. Under this file, we can create different pages for a project. If you use the plus sign here, you see we have page 2. If you click on this again, we have page 3. If you are on page 1, you can actually add some designs, page 2, and we can rename them respectively. Let's say here, I will just say intro to Figma, that's page 1. Here, we can just say login screen, page 2. Then page 3 here, you can just see maybe your assignment. Let's start with the intro page. So whatever I'm doing now will just be available on this particular page. We're going to start looking at all the tools that are here. Now click on the drop down here. We have the hand tool. It helps you to move the screen around. Then we have the scale tool. But to understand how these items work properly, or this section, we need to learn how to use the shape tools so that we can move them around with the hand tool and also the scale tool. So we're going to start from this section here, which is the shape tool. If you click on the drop down here, it gives you all list of these items. So let's start by creating a rectangle. If you select this, and on the screen here, we call this empty space your canva. This is our canva. I will click and then drag to create a rectangle. I'm creating a rectangle. This is pretty easy. So let's try to create another rectangle again. This time, no need to select this. You can press letter R on your keyboard, R for rectangle. Once you do that, click and drag. But this time, press Shift on your keyboard and notice what happened. Immediately, this automatically changes to a square. If you want to create a square using the rectangle tool, you hold Shift and we have this. And how do I know that this is a square? If you select this, somewhere on the right hand side, we have layout. You see the width is 113 by 113, the height. So this is a square. If I select this, you see this is the width and then this is the height and then this is not a square. Then let's look at other items here. Let's click on the drop down. We have line. To add a line, you can click and then drag to create these lines here. What if I want to create a straight line? All I need to do, you can press letter L on your keyboard for line. Click this time. So instead of just trying to drag this, press Shift on your keyboard. You're going to get a straight line. And if I try to go down, it's going to move angle 45. If I force this down, you see it's going to move to angle 45. If I go back up, we have our straight line. That's good. Let's try to create this other one here. That is the arrow. So we can just click and drag here and it comes with this arrowhead. It's the same thing with the line. The next one is the ellipse. Here you can try to create your circle. So if this is not perfect, you can guess this time. Just press Shift on your keyboard and then we have our perfect cycle. Let's look at the next tool here. Still here, I have the polygon. I can select and then click and then drag to add this. If it's not perfect, hold Shift. You're going to get a perfect triangle. But from the name, this is a polygon. So how is this a polygon? We can add different shapes or number of sides to this. If you select this polygon, on the right hand side where we have appearance, you notice we have this 4 dots. You can change this to 4 and you see we have 4 shapes. I've changed this to a diamond. If I add 5, which is a pentagon, you see we have this shape here. We can create different polygons with this. You can even add 12 and you see it's going to create this for you. So what next here? Let's look at this. We have the star. I can select this, click and drag this. If the star is not perfect, hold Shift and we have this. We have other things here. I can select this item. You see we have images and videos. I can select this and try to add an image. So I'm going to add a simple image here. I'll open this and it's just going to show me where do I want to place this image. I can select this empty space and you see I have my image added to my file here. Let me drag this and you see we have this. If you want to try the image again, select this where you have image or video. You can pick any file you want to work on. Just select this. So now if I want to add it, make sure you're selecting an empty space. And the cool thing about images, I can actually place this chair inside this star and it's going to take the shape of this star. But you have to make sure that you are highlighting or selecting this star. Now I'll press this on my keyboard. You see it's now taking the shape of this, so you can try that. The next thing here, it's the pen tool, or okay, I said we are going to explore this move tool now. So let's say I select the hand here. Now I can just move the whole screen around. I can select this, keep dragging or pinching the screen around. That's with the move tool. Then the same thing here with the scale tool. I can select this. Let's see, once I select this item, I can just scale this up and down here. So I can just reduce this here. That's using the scale tool. Then I think we are done with this other section. We have this other section here, frames. Before you can design anything in Figma, you need this frame. So here, if I select frame, you see we have some options on the right hand side. So we have phone, tablet, desktop, presentation, watch, etc. So let's say I want to pick one of this. I want to design for a mobile phone. I can then select this and pick the screen I want to use as my mockup. So if I select this iPhone 14 and 15 Pro, you see we have this shape here. I can zoom in to see this. So what if I want to design on a tablet? I can select this item and close this section, go to tablets, and I'll pick this iPad 11 Pro. So that's 11 inches. iPad Pro 11 inches. So for desktop, I can select this frame as well, close this and go to desktop, and I'll select the 16 inches. So we have all the 3 screens. You can even try that with wristwatch and the rest. You can just select this and then pick whichever one you want here. So I'm going to close this. So that is for the frames. If you select this, we have other options here like the section. I'm going to select this and try to drag this here. We have this and looks like a frame, but this time I can just change this name here to icons. I use this to organize my resources. This is always going to have this tag here, and then things can just go inside this section here. Let's click down here and see the slice. Let's say I add this slice here, and for this my chair, let's come in here and practicalize with this chair. If I should drag this slice tool over this chair like this, this is going to allow me to export just this particular portion of this image. Once you're done drawing this, the same way we've done that with others, you click and drag. I'm going to delete this. Let's say select the slice again, click this like this. Now you see we have the option to export here. If I click this and then let's just preview this and see, you see we have just half of this. If you try to adjust this here, let's see somewhere here, just the back wheel. So now you see we have the portion of this that I want to work with. So basically if I increase this, you see, and it's going to try to cover this. If I just try to adjust, keep trying to adjust this, now it's just going to keep showing me the portion of this to export. That's basically the use of the slides. I can just delete that. The next thing we want to look at here after the slices, this other section here, we have the pen tools here. The pen, it's used most of the time to create icons or to draw out patterns. If I select the pen tool, I can click here. Let's say I'm trying to draw something. I can hold. Let's see if I click and don't release this and I try to drag this, you see it's going to try to create this. We're going to take our time to learn how to design with this pen tool. I can close this. Let me make sure I'm selecting this other one. If I do, I can just select this here. You see we have this particular shape for the pen tool. So mostly used to create icons. Then we have the pencil here. Most of the time I use this to sketch out an idea. Let's say I'm working on a site and then I just want to sketch out how I want it to look. Let's say this is my screen. I'll say I have a nav bar here, and we have a hero section, and this is going to be the image, and we can have these 3 things here or some images here, and we can have a footer like this. So you can use this to just sketch out ideas. Let's see how the text tool works. So I'm going to select the letter T. You can just press T on your keyboard, and I'm going to add hello Figma. To add that again, press letter T on your keyboard. Welcome to Bootcamp. So we have our text here. Then the last item here is this comment here. We use this to add important comment. If I select this, I said it's okay, add more colors. So if I have a team, this is going to be forwarded to their email. They are going to get this notification, and you can even drag this and point to the exact portion you want whoever is working on this to make the changes. If they come in, they are going to see it, and then they know that okay, this is coming from this person. You see icode just now, add more colors. So for this plus sign here, it's just some tools that we're going to explore, but basically these are the tools we're going to be using. Now that we know the basic tools and how we can use them, remember these pages we've created. I'm going to leave this page or abandon this page and jump to this page. If you have not created this page, just use the plus sign here, add this, and then you can rename that to our login page. If you don't need that page, just select this, right click, and you can delete this page. I'm going to click on the login screen. Let's apply everything we've learned so far to build a login screen. I'm going to make sure I'm selecting this section here. Make sure you're selecting the frames. We want to design or create the login for a mobile phone. So I'm going to select the iPhone 14 and 15 Pro. Feel free to pick any screen you want to design on. Let's start by creating the input field. To do that, we need to use a rectangle. That's for starters. I'm going to select this other section here. Make sure you're selecting the rectangle, or you can press letter R on your keyboard. To zoom in, I'm going to hold Command or Control. Then I'm going to use the mouse wheel to zoom in or out. We can drag this somewhere here to where you are okay with this. We have our width here and then the height. For us to adjust this, if you select this rectangle, make sure you're selecting this. Where we have the layout, you can reduce the size or height here to 48. For this width, let's change that to maybe an even number here, so we can divide that by 2 easily. Here we have our input field. The next thing we want to add here is the text. To do that, press letter T on your keyboard and then add, let's say, enter email. Here we can drag this to somewhere here. Now the next thing is to just try to tone down this color here. This is looking too dark. To change colors in Figma, you select the item you want to change the color and scroll down to where you are having fill. Select this other section. We now have a color palette. We're not going to do much. I'll just select this, try to just push this somewhere at the top here. If you want to use the same color that I'm using, you can just simply come in here and type F5, F5, F5. So it's going to give you this color for our rectangle. The next thing we want to add is maybe some lines around this, like a stroke. Once you select the rectangle, scroll down where you have stroke here, click on the plus sign. Once you do that, you notice we have this line around this rectangle. Select this again. Let's adjust the color of this. So I'm going to drag this to somewhere here at the top like this. Now we have our input field. We can also reduce the color of this. This is too bright. Select this and let's change the color. This time scroll down till you can get this feel. Select this and let's drag this somewhere at the top here. I'll be picking somewhere here. Now you see we have our input field. There are some input field, you'll see they have some corners here. You can select this and go to where you are having appearance. Here we can adjust this to 8. So now if you see we have some corners here. If you want to make it rounded, you can just add a number or half of the height. So if I should do 48, divide by 2, it's going to work. Give me 24. You see I have this, but most of the time you can just go ahead and use the same 48 here. But half of that should give you this rounded corner that you need. For now, I'm not going to use this. We can just stay around 8 and that's fine, or you can go low 4. If I select this now, I can just drag this somewhere close here, and at the top I can add letter T or press T on your keyboard. Let's add email. So here, this is going to be our label. For this now, let's say I try to move this down. If I should click this and I try to move this, you see, it's not moving with this. So we need to group these 3 items together. You notice I have item 1, that's on my left hand side. I have the rectangle, I have enter email as a text, and I have email as a text. All we need to do right now is to group these items together. So I'm going to click on this empty space, then click and then drag. Make sure you're highlighting over these items you want us to group. Here you notice that these 3 items has been selected. Press Command G or Ctrl G to group these items. Once you do that, check the left hand side, you will see group 1. If I try to move this, you see all the 3 items are now moving as a group. So the next thing is to create the input field for the password. But one good thing about Figma is that all I need to do, I don't have to go through that process again. I can select this. Look at this left hand side. Let me press Command D to duplicate or Control D. So I'll do that, Control D. So now you see I have group 2. But why is it not visible here? It's because it is stacked on top of group 1. So all you need to do is to drag this down. We have this item here. So I'm going to change this to double click because this is a group now. To work on this or edit this, you have to double click. I'm going to double click again and then delete. Then this is going to be password. Here, instead of enter email, I'm just going to select this. By the time you get that cursor, you can just set that to enter password. So I feel I have double space in here. Okay, yes. We have the first enter email and then enter password. This time I want to create a button. So I can select this again, Ctrl D, then drag this down here. First is to delete this. And then instead of this enter password, I can just say sign in for this. Then let's drag this and then drop this somewhere here. The first thing is to make sure that this button is having a different color. Select this. Make sure you're selecting the rectangle one here. Once you've done that, where we have the field, select this and let's pick somewhere here that's around the blue color. I can just drag this and then point this here. But you notice that the login or sign in here, it's not visible. Select this and let's change the color. Scroll down to where we have field. Select this and then drag this to top. Let's change that to white. And then if you select this item, the next thing we want to change is the stroke. So you can select this and just select this blue color here or whichever color you've added, that's for the main color. Now you see we have our login form in just few minutes and this looks awesome. Let's try to add a forgot password here. So press letter T on your keyboard. So I'm just going to say forgot password, then question mark. We can now set this somewhere here. Good thing we can just adjust the color as well. So I'm just going to drag this somewhere around this here. And you see we have this item 1, item 2, 3, 4. Because we want to be able to move these items together, I can highlight and select all of these items here. Here now you see I have this icon here somewhere at the bottom. It's suggesting that if I click this now, it's going to arrange this item. So let's do that. Click this, it's going to arrange the spacing, but that's not what I want. So I'm going to do Ctrl Z to undo that here. Once you see this, just know that it's automatically going to align the spacing of those items. While selecting this, you can just make sure to do that. Just select everything, click, and then drag to cover everything. Ctrl G to group these items here. I can move this item as a group and somewhere at the center here. If the spacing is too much, you can select this and try to push this downward. Make sure you're selecting just that group and you can push it down here. This is how you can create a simple form in Figma. You can modify this and add some little design from what we've covered, and you can share it with us on our social media handle. The sample of how to share your files will be made available in the description below. If you have been watching, you've made it to the last chapter of this session. In this chapter, we're going to be talking about the design fundamentals. And the first thing we're going to look at here is the color theory. So we need to understand colors and how we can mix colors. To understand colors, we're going to look at the primary colors, secondary, and the tertiary colors. The primary color consists of the red, blue, and yellow. These are the building blocks for all other colors. We have the secondary color, which are green, orange, and purple. These colors are created by mixing the primary colors. The tertiary colors are colors gotten by mixing a primary color with a secondary color. On the right hand side, we have an example. These are the primary colors, the secondary colors, and the tertiary colors. Now, let's look at the color wheel and also color harmony. Color wheel is a tool that shows relationship between colors. It helps designers to create harmonious color scheme. The next concept here is color harmony. Colors that look good together are referred to as color harmony. We have some color scheme which include complementary. These colors are sitting opposite each other on the color wheel. And this on the right hand side here, it's an example of a color wheel. We have analogous colors which sit next to each other on the color wheel. The next color here is triadic. So these are three colors that are evenly spaced around the color wheel. We have other types of color harmony like the monochromatic and tetradic. The next thing here is to jump back to Figma and see how we can use these colors in our project. To use this color, open your Figma and then we have this plus sign here. Now click on this and we can click on plugins. Here, search for color wheel. Now click this and wait for this to open. Once this opens, you see we have our color wheel. The first color we're going to look at is the complementary color. Complementary colors are colors that are opposite each other on the color wheel. If I go green, the one opposite this, you see it's this red sign here. So we have this here and this is the other color here. If I want to now generate and use these two colors in my project, all you need to do is to click on the generate palette. Here it's going to generate different shades. So let's click this and see. We have more than one color, but then these are the two major colors here. All these are shades of the color we just picked. The next one we want to look at is the analogous here. So analogous, we said they are colors that are side by side on the color wheel. So if I click, you make sure you're clicking the big dot here and you see it's going to generate two other colors that are side by side of this thick one. If you go in, you get the thicker colors. If you're going outside, that's towards the edge, we have the lighter colors. Once you're done, all you need to do, we can just update this. You see we have color 1, 2, 3. You see here we've increased the number of colors. Then the next one is the triadic, which we said these are colors that are evenly spaced. See, we have this looks like a triangle and they are evenly spaced. Unlike the analogous that are side by side, these ones, they are completely or evenly spaced. And if I click on this, it's going to generate this palette. So you remember I mentioned tetradic. So here they are using square for that. They are 4. And if you move here like this, we get our colors, and we can also just update this. You see we have 4 colors. And I mentioned the monochromatic, which I said it's basically the use of one color. Let's say I want to use a black color, 1C, 1C, 1C. I'll just delete that one. And we have this. You see it's going to generate the main color and other shades I can actually use. If I update this, we have our shades here. If you notice, there is always an extra color here coming from this opacity. If I change this and I try to update this, you notice it's also going to affect this color here. This is just to give us an insight on the different types of colors that are available for you. An in-depth video will be linked in the description below that shows you a practical guide on how to use this. But this is how we're going to be picking colors for our project in this bootcamp. Let's look at how colors can be used to evoke emotions. Warm colors like red, orange, and yellow signifies energizing, attention grabbing, and these are often used in marketing and sales. On the right hand side, I have some application icons. If you look at them carefully, you'll notice that they utilize the warm colors. Cool colors like blue, green, and purple signify calming, professional. These are often used in tech, finance, and healthcare. Blue color can also signify trust. We have the neutral colors, which are black, white, and gray. These colors are versatile and are used for balance, contrast, and background. We have a simplified example here, the fitness app and the relaxation app. At the top here, you notice they use color like red and orange. We have the relaxation app, which utilizes the blue color. If you notice here, there's a touch of a green color here. So this is to tell you that professional designers are aware of the color theories and they utilize them in their day-to-day designs. The next thing we're going to look at here is typography. Typography is also an important concept in UI design. We have different typefaces in UI designs and we need to understand them and to know when and where to apply this typography. The first typeface we have is the serif. These are fonts with small lines or stroke at the end of the character. I have an example here with this letter A. You notice there is this stroke or line at the end of this character. They are highlighted in this red circle. Font family like the Times New Roman falls under the serif. Then we have the sans serif. These are clean modern fonts without the small line or the stroke. So this is an example of a sans serif. Sans, it's from the French word without. So if you translate this, it means without the stroke or without the line. The last one here on the list we have is the script. So these are decorative, cursive fonts that resemble handwriting. This is an example of a script. Before we jump back to Figma and practicalize this, let's look at some of the hierarchy in typography. In typography, we have the headings, which are considered to be larger, bolder text. These are used to grab attention. An example here is the DesignMastery you see. Then we have the subheading. These are slightly smaller than the heading. So this is used to organize content and provide additional context. So we have the DesignMastery. So to add more context to this, this is a UIUX bootcamp. We have the body text, which you can see here. The caption or the footnote is just the smallest text you can have in your design or in your project. So this is a visual representation of what we just covered: the heading, subheading, and the body. Let's jump back to Figma and see how we can practicalize or how we can create typography and also add the different typefaces we just learned. This is our previous design, so I'm going to select this color palette. Don't worry about this. You can drag it somewhere else or you can delete this. So I'm just going to select this and delete this. To zoom in, you can press Command or Control and use your mouse wheel. Now I'm going to zoom in, and then to add our first typography, I'm going to click on letter T here, and then we can select a space where we want to type. This is going to be DesignMastery. This typography comes with some properties that we're going to look at. On the right hand side, scroll to where you'd see typography. The first thing we have here is the font family. This is where we can pick whether this is serif or sans serif or script. If you select this section here, I'm going to click this and let's add Times New Roman, which is a serif. We have the Times New Roman. I'm going to select this. You notice that this has the stroke we're talking about. If I select this, this also have other properties. I'll scroll down, like the font size. And we said we have the typography hierarchy. If this is a heading, we can add this, or let's make the size of this from 12 to 42. I'm going to hold Control and then zoom out so that we can see this completely. This is now a heading because of the size. Let's change the font weight of this. Make sure you're selecting this and you have this typography on the right hand side. Here you see we have different font weight. We have the bold, we have italic, we have italic bold. So let's say we're selecting bold for this. So this is how our typography is going to look for the heading. We can also change this to a sans serif. If you want to keep the two, you can select this and press Ctrl D or Command D, then drag this to create a duplicate. So we can come back in here. If you select Enter, this is a sans serif. But this here, we said it's serif because it's having this line at the end of the text, while this is sans serif. Now press Command D again and drag this out to duplicate this. I'm going to come back here and let's change this. For the font family, we're looking for dancing script. I'm going to select this. You see we have this here, which is the script typeface. And we can select this and then try to change the font weight of this. This have regular, medium, and semi-bold. These typeface are important when designing our application. Let's quickly go back to our lesson notes and continue. The next thing on our outline is layers and composition. And in layers and composition, we're going to be looking at grid system. A grid system is a framework of vertical and horizontal lines that helps organize content on a page. Why do we need grid on our design? This is to ensure consistency, alignment, and balance across the design. We have the different types of grid. The first is a single grid. The second is the multi-grid. And the last one is the modular grid. Let's move to the next page so we can explain better with an illustration. Here, this is a single grid style. If you notice, we just have one line with margins on the left and also on the right. For multi-columns, you notice we have more than one column inside this section. For modular grid is a combination of rows and also columns. So if you notice here, there are some tiny lines here signifying the rows, and we still have the columns. Combination of rows and column forms the modular grid system. We can quickly jump back to Figma and practicalize this. I'll go back to my design file. This is our first design. If you notice, we created this without any form of grid system. And if you look closely, you notice that this is not aligned properly. So how can we apply grid to this design? We're going to start this with a single column grid. To apply the grid system on our design, select the frame and scroll down. At the bottom here, we have the layout grid. Click on the plus sign here. Once you do that, we have this graph texture on our design. Select this layout settings and let's change this to columns. For this, we're using the one column system. So I'm going to set the count to 1. And then the next thing we want to add here is the margin. I will set that to 16. That's space on the left hand and also on the right hand side, like the margin of a book. The gutters now is the spacing between our margins. So we don't have any gutter. For now, I'm going to close this. With the help of this grid now, you notice that our design at this point is not centered. So if I should select this design and try to center this here, you see it's perfectly centered, but you want this to be touching the edge of this. So individually, I can select this here and then drag this and come back in here and drag this. If you don't understand how I did that, let me undo this again. So you can come in here, make sure you're selecting just one group and then click and then drag this. Once it touches this end, you notice a red line, and I can come back to this end and drag this as well. Once it touches this line, you get the red line. So I can select this one again and do the same thing, drag, and I'll come back here and make sure that we are doing the same thing. So if I select this, I can drag this, make sure it's touching this section, and we can do the same thing here. So once we have this, we can decide to hide the grid system. You can select the frame and then hide this. And you notice that this is more balanced than it was. We can add the multi-column grid system. To do that, I'm going to click on frames and let's pick a bigger screen. This time, let's go with a desktop. Once you add this desktop screen here, we can now add a layout grid to this. Scroll down where we have the layout grid, you can click on the plus sign. This time, we're going to click on this layout grid settings and we're going to change this to columns. For the count, since this is a multiple column, we're going to set that to 12. And for the margins, I'm going to set that to 80. You see, we have margin on the left and right. Then the gutters now is the spacing between each of the columns. That's the white spacing you're seeing here. It's referred to as the gutter. If I change this to 0, notice what happened. The gutters are tiny. So this time we want the gutters to be 16 instead of 20. Now we have set the multiple column grid. The last on the list is the modular grid. I'm going to select this and press Command D or Control D. We can add our rules this time. To do that, go back to your grid system and you can click on the plus sign because we've added the columns. This time we're going to add another one again. So here, let's click on the settings and change this to rules. For this count here, I want this to be, let's say 2000, or you can make that 28. Let's just use 200. For the height of this, I'm going to change this and I can set this to top. The height, I'm going to set that to 8. And for the gutters, we can set that to 8 as well. So we have these tiny lines that we can use for our measurement. So I can close this. This is an example of a modular grid. As we continue this bootcamp, we're going to see how we can apply this to our project. Still on layout and composition, we're going to look at alignment and white spacing. Alignment ensures that all elements are visually connected and helps guide the user eye and create a more organized layout. White space, also known as negative space, it's the empty space around elements. It helps prevent a clutter look and makes the design more breathable and elegant. We have two examples here, and if you look at these two examples, they are all aligned to the left side. But if you look at the spacing between this element here, there's no enough white space, especially for the text content. And we have another example here. So this empty space you're seeing between these two text is the white space. And if you look here, we still have another white space. This white space is also referred to as negative space, especially in graphic design. The next thing we're going to look at in layout and composition, it's the visual hierarchy. Visual hierarchy is the arrangement of elements in a way that signifies their importance. We have an example on the right hand side here. We have a page with some images and these lines representing a text. So from this page now, we can deduct that this image is more important than these three other images. That is why it is bigger than the three other images. When a user opens this page, their first focus will be on this bigger image. From here, they can now move down to other section of this particular page. We have some principles of visual hierarchy, and we are going to explain this using illustrations. The first is size and scale. Larger elements are typically viewed first, and this is an example. Then we have color and contrast. Bright or contrasting color draws attention. We also have typography. Bold and large font emphasize importance. Spacing. Elements spaced closer together are perceived as related. An example is this elements we are having, the set of images here. They are well aligned together, so we believe these images are related. The last one here is positions. Elements at the top of the screen or in the center are most likely to be seen first. So let's see some illustration that explain all these principles. The first one is size and scale. Here we said earlier, this image is bigger, so typically the user will be drawn to this big image before any other item on the page. The next one is color and contrast. When I switched to this page, the first thing that caught your eye was the DesignMastery, even before this image at the top. So that is one effect of color and contrast on your design. We have directions. Elements that are aligned differently from the majority will stand out. Despite the fact we have a lot of content on this particular page, if you notice, this particular section stands out because it is aligned differently. The next here is the position. Once you open this page, the first thing that gets your attention is the DesignMastery. So elements at the top of the screen or in the center are more likely to be seen. This brings us to the end of the first 3 chapters, and we're going to take a project for this. So before we take the project, let's do some simple assessment. Which of these elements have a good visual hierarchy? I'll give you some seconds to think. The answer is the first one. Let's take another quiz again. Which of these elements have a good visual hierarchy? This can be a little tricky. The answer is the second one because of the hierarchy. This brings us to the end of the 3 chapters. So let's move to see the task for the session. So the task here is to create a basic blog post with a clear hierarchy, readability, and aesthetics. You will use typography, spacing, and alignment to ensure an appealing design. These are the instructions here. For the header, we're going to use a sans serif, and an example has been given, that's the Helvetica. We have the subheading here as well, and then what you're going to use. Then we have the font size, the same with the body and caption. Let's look at other instructions here. For the character count, we should have around 50 to 75. Then the paragraph length should be at least 2 to 4 sentences per paragraph. These are some of the color hints. For any gray color you want to use this. The dark color, use this. And for the white, we're going to use this. Let's jump back to Figma so I can help you set up, give you a head start. The first thing we need to do is to create a page for this assignment. I'm going to click on the plus sign here, and this is going to be blog post. Already, I've done my design. So all I need to do is to paste it here for you to see. Let's wait for this to load. Okay, once this is fully loaded, we can't actually see the beauty of this. If I should select this, you notice there's this option here, prototype. You can click on this and go to prototype settings. So this time, if I want this to be in a device, I'm using the MacBook Pro 14-inch. I can scroll down and make sure I'm selecting the MacBook Pro 14-inch. Then you can click on the play sign here. Let's wait for this to load. This is going to open our project in this mockup, but we want to see this project on a full weight scale. I'll go back to this, and then instead of a MacBook Pro, you can scroll back and select no device. I can just switch to the tab where this is open, and we can click on this settings here. Then make sure we're using the actual size. Here we have this, and I can use this dots here or these arrows to have the full scale width of this. If I now scroll, you look at the alignment, the design, everything looks appealing. If I scroll down, this is the end, and this is how your text is supposed to look like. I'll show you how you can export this and share on your social media handle so I can review the project. Before we do that, let's set up your own screen so you can have a good head start. I'm going to click on design back here. So let's add a frame. This time I'm going to be selecting MacBook 14-inch. The first thing we're going to add is the grid system. Scroll down while selecting this and click a plus sign to add a grid system. Select the settings here and change this to columns. Now set this count to 12 and the margin of this should be 380. The gutters, you can set that to 16, and we have our grid system. For the navigation bar, I will recommend you press R on your keyboard or rectangle and just create this here. Make sure that the height of this is 72. That's the height, 72. So we don't need to add the modular grid. So you can now click and then drag this to the end. This grid system is going to disturb you while you are designing. So a simple solution is to introduce rulers and then hide this. Click on the Figma icon here on the left hand side and go to views. Make sure that this ruler is checked. If it is not checked, you click this. If it is checked, you can just click outside. At the end here, you will see some numbers. So hover over this till your cursor changes to the same thing I'm having on the screen. Now click and drag this. It's going to bring one ruler. I'll go back and do the same thing, click and then drag, and then we're going to bring this here. I need to zoom in, so I'll make sure that this is placed somewhere here at the beginning. To zoom in and out, hold Command and use your mouse wheel. We're going to do the same thing for this other side. I'm going to click on this and I can just drag this here. Zoom in and make sure it's touching this extreme. So select this item and go to where we are having layout grid. You can just hide this. Now I can click on this and you can increase the height of this to whatever height you want. If you have more content, you can also increase this. Based on our instruction, the heading here is supposed to be size 42. This is the size here, 42. And the font family is Helvetica and this is bold. The line height is set to 52. Then let's look at our subtitle. That's the subheading. I'm going to click highlight over this. You see, this is set to Jakarta, semi-bold, and the size is 24. The line height is 32. For your body text, if I highlight over this, you'll see we have this set to sans serif 4. The font weight is regular, the font size is 20, and the line height is 32. This section, we also have the footnotes. If I should highlight over this, the size should be 14, and it's also Helvetica, and then it's regular, the line height is 20. So this is the same with this tiny one here. This is also a footnote. You notice this is size 14. And for this should be a size 16, and it's also Helvetica. Once you've created the heading and this, and we have this here, this is an ellipse. To add an image here, you remember how we added image in the earlier section. To make it easier, you can click on the plus sign here and go to plugins. Now search for Unsplash and you can click this. Using Unsplash, we can search for profile, and this is a collection of different images. So all you need to do is make sure you're selecting your ellipse or circle, and you can select any image here and it will be fit into this particular ellipse. The same thing with this section here. You can search for UI, UX, design, but you have to make sure that this is a rectangle. It's obvious. And then you can select any picture that matches your desire. So once you select, you make sure you're selecting the field where you want this to appear. Let's say I don't select any field here and I pick this image. It's just going to appear outside my design, and sometimes they come with this extra size. So make sure you're picking the size or where you want this to appear. I can come back here and do the same thing. A simple example, let's say I want to add this. I can just rectangle and I can drag the rectangle to make sure that it's touching these two, and we can pick any of this to fit this particular rectangle. So that's how you can add those images. The same thing if it's an ellipse. Let's switch to an ellipse here. We can just use this and pick any of this, and it's going to fit into this ellipse. So we can delete this and also close this. And on this section here, you can select this and change the color back to white. After changing that, you can add a stroke to this, but make sure that the stroke is only at the bottom. So we can select this and make sure that we are having this at the bottom, just like this here. Once you have this, all you need to do is to change the color of the stroke to DE here. So you see we have this faint color at the bottom, and you can add your logo. You see I have a logo, I have a search bar. You can do that. Once you're through, to share this with us, you can select this on your screen and then scroll down to where you are having export. You can now share this or export this. This is going to be downloaded to your device and it's going to open this particular screen. And you can share this with us on our social media handle. The first thing you need to do is to make sure you're following me on the social media handles I'll be sharing. You can share this with the hashtag DesignMastery by iCode. The instruction on how to do this will be made available in the description below, and I can go through your design and then review them.